And if I told you that within you there is such a powerful energy that, if it is directed correctly, it can awaken your spiritual heart, open the inner eye, and ignite the divine consciousness? It is not found in temples, nor is it reached with empty prayers. It is there, right between your roots, asleep, waiting. It is called sexual energy. But the ancients did not see it as mere passion or pleasure. For them, it was the original fire of creation. Throughout the centuries, many traditions secretly kept a knowledge that today seems almost forgotten: the art of masculine energetic transmutation and its central practice, testicular breathing. It is not a modern technique or a passing spiritual fashion. It is an ancient practice used by alchemists, Taoists, tantrics, and mystics of different cultures who understood a sacred truth. Sperm is not just a biological seed, but a source of spiritual energy. And that energy, if it is not wasted, can ascend the spine, feed the heart, and open the third eye. In other words, it can make you a truly conscious man. This video is not for those who seek pleasure without purpose, nor for those who fear facing themselves. It is a call to man who wants to remember himself as a temple, who knows that his sexuality is not a game, but a sacred way of power, creation, and awakening. Here we will explore, in depth and without censorship, the secrets behind testicular breathing. You will understand what it is, how it works, and why its practice can transform not only your body, but your mind, your emotions, and your spiritual field. We will talk about its ancestral origin, its connection with the sacred masculine, and how it raises energy from the testicles, the caldera of the vital, to higher centers such as the heart and the third eye. It is an act of inner ascension, of living alchemy, a dance between the fire of the root and the light of the spirit. You will also learn how to apply it, the most common mistakes, and the benefits it brings to those who practice with devotion and discipline. Because this is not just a sexual control technique, it is a direct way towards inner dominance and the expansion of the masculine consciousness. And yes, although its name causes surprise or nervous laughter in some, testicular breathing is one of the deepest paths towards the masculine spiritual power. You are not here by chance. Perhaps your soul has reached the point where it no longer wants to waste energy, but to raise it. Get ready to remember what the modern world has forgotten: that your creative, well-directed energy is the staircase to the divine. From the mystical sands of the Egyptian desert to the silent temples of the Himalayas, the ancients knew something that modernity has relegated to oblivion. Sexual energy is not only physical, but divine, and its correct channelization was considered a sacred science, an inner alchemy, a bridge between the animal and the celestial. The practice of testicular breathing, although not always called that, is a knowledge transmitted in symbolic codes by different initiatic cultures. The sages of Taoism, for example, spoke of the golden elixir, an energetic substance that accumulated in the masculine genitals and that, being refined and directed, ascended through the central channel, known as the meridian or dumai, towards the crown, illuminating each energy center in its path. For these ancient alchemists of the body, testicles were not merely biological organs, but living crystals, temples of vital storage, true energy laboratories where the force of life, called yin, was condensed. By breathing consciously from them, that energy reserve could be activated and turned into a more subtle vibration, chi or transformed vital energy, which would then feed the mind, the heart, and the spirit. In Tantric India, we find parallel ideas. The siddhas and yogis spoke of the kundalini, a serpent of fire that sleeps at the base of the spine. Although the best-known narrative associates this energy with the coccyx or the root chakra, The oldest texts recognize the seminal power as its initial fuel. Sexual transmutation, practiced with breathing and concentration, was known as Bahrali Mudra, a technique to elevate the sublimated semen to the brain, opening states of expansion and samadhi. Even in the Western Hermetic tradition, we find parallelisms. The axiom solve et coagula, dissolve and reuna, was not just an external alchemical instruction, but an internal indication, dissolving the dense energy of the sexual instinct to coagulate it in spiritual light. Christian alchemists spoke of the inner Christ being born in the heart, which was not just a pious metaphor but an esoteric description of the transmuted energy that ascends from the back to the chest. The fascinating thing is that, although the names change, the principle remains. The creative energy should not be wasted, but refined, not denied, not repressed, but turned into a fuel for awakening, because the power of the universe, creation, expansion, manifestation, is hidden in it. The testicular breathing is then a forgotten piece of a much larger map, a map that reminds us that the body is not an obstacle for the spirit, but its most sacred instrument, that sexuality is not sin or blind impulse, but an ancient art of enlightenment. The man who learns to breathe from his roots not only regains his vital power, he regains his spiritual royalty. He becomes an alchemist again. In the heart of male internal alchemy, there is a universal principle, which is not raised, stagnated, or lost. The testicular breathing is the technique that allows to transform the sexual energy, that brute force that roars in the root of the body, in an ascending river of living consciousness. But to understand it, first we must know the terrain where it operates. Imagine your testicles as a pair of sacred chalices. In them is deposited, day after day, the densest energy, but also the most creative of your system. It is not only about semen, but about the yin, the vital essence, according to Taoism, an energetic concentrate that stores your genetic inheritance, your immune force, your general vitality, and, yes, also your sexual power. This spiritual liquid, as some alchemical texts called it, can be used in three ways. 1. It is wasted by habit or compulsion. 2. It is repressed and becomes tension or neurosis. 3. Or it is breathed, raised, and transformed into energetic gold. Here comes the testicular breathing. It is not a literal breathing from the testicles, but a technique of directed consciousness and synchronized breathing, in which you focus your attention on that energetic center. You visualize and feel the heat, and you use breathing as a bridge to transfer that energy to higher areas. But why breathing? Because breathing is the only voluntary bridge between the physical and the subtle. To control breathing is to control the flow of energy. Air is a symbol of the spirit in all traditions, and when you combine attention, breathing, and purpose, you create an internal circuit where what was stagnant begins to flow. The technique is generally done sitting, with the back straight and the perineum slightly activated, as if you wanted to contain the energy. When you inhale deeply, you visualize how a golden sphere of energy is activated in the testicles. When you exhale, you imagine that sphere rising slowly through the spine, passing through the abdomen, the solar plexus, the heart, until you reach the intervertebral or even the crown. This journey is not a fantasy. It corresponds to the central energetic channel, known as Sushumna in yoga and Dumai in Taoism. As the energy rises, it nourishes each energetic center, chakras, purifying blockages, releasing tensions, awakening memories. But this is not just visualization. With practice, you can feel how a subtle and warm current rises on your back, sometimes like an anthill, others like an electric pulse, and at certain moments like a deep expansion of consciousness. Now, It is not about avoiding ejaculation as a moral act. It is about recognizing that the constant loss of this energy weakens not only the physical body, but the entire energetic field. The energy that is not raised is dissipated. What is not honored is exhausted. In this first phase of practice, the goal is not to control with tension, but to cultivate internal sensitivity. To learn to feel your sexual energy, not as an urgency, but as a power, not as an external desire, but as an inner creative fire. The true domain sought is not in repressing the impulse, but in refining it until it becomes a vision. What was once a blind fire becomes a directed light. That is alchemy, the art of transmuting the dense into subtle, the instinctive into spiritual. And it all begins breathing from where no one taught you to breathe, from the temple hidden between your hips. Testicular breathing is not a technique more within the vast universe of spiritual practices. It is, in essence, a male energetic initiation path. And like any initiation, it must be transited with respect, clarity, and purpose. Because the same fire that illuminates can also burn, and not all impulse of transmutation is guided by the wisdom of the soul. So far, we have understood that breathing from the sexual center is a way of moving the creative energy to higher planes. But what we have not yet explored is what happens when that energy reaches those higher centers, and how each one responds to this primordial force when it is refined with intention. When the transmuted sexual energy reaches the heart, the center of love and compassion, a profound transformation occurs. What used to be physical desire becomes vibrant devotion. The heart not only becomes sensitive, but begins to radiate a powerful magnetic force capable of attracting, healing, and expanding the consciousness of the environment. This is one of the reasons why many men, when practicing this technique with constancy, report not only greater vitality, but also more conscious relationships, more balanced emotions, and an openness to the deep feeling without fear of the vulnerable. The sexual energy elevated to the heart humanizes desire and turns it into service, tenderness, and sacred presence. If the energy continues its ascent to the intercourse, or even to the crown, it enters the realm of inner knowledge, spiritual vision, and awake intuition. Here, the vital impulse becomes transcendent vision. It is as if the fire in the base becomes light in the forehead. In Taoist texts, this was known as nourishing the spirit. In tantric yoga, it is like bringing the semen to the window, a subtle point behind the intercourse that, when activated, awakens visions, instantaneous understandings, and an almost mystical connection with the purpose of the soul. The result is a man who no longer pursues external experiences compulsively, but inhabits his own center with clarity and power, and from there he creates, manifests, and radiates. However, not everything is luminous expansion. One of the most common mistakes is to try to force the ascent of energy without having emotionally and energetically cleaned the internal channels. If energy finds blockages in its root, it can deviate, stagnate, or generate symptoms such as anxiety, insomnia, or irritability. That is why it is essential to combine this practice with others that open the subtle channels of the energetic body, such as working with the chakras, unlocking the diaphragm, where many emotions are stuck, and cleaning the central channel through conscious breaths or mantras. It is also dangerous to approach this technique from the ego. Believing that energy is dominated because ejaculation is contained is not alchemy, it is camouflaged repression. The true domain is not in controlling the body, but in knowing and harmonizing the intention that moves the desire. Without humility, this practice becomes a narcissistic act. With humility, it transforms into a way of deep masculine awakening. How do you know if the practice is working? The answer is not in a longer erection or in the absence of ejaculation. It is in the transformation of your presence. With humility, you become more magnetic without effort. You feel that you inhabit your body with nobility, not with anxiety. The heart opens without fear, the mind becomes clear, and a sensation of sweet fire accompanies you, as if something inside you remembered that you have returned home. That is the true result, having transformed instinct into light, sex into wisdom, fire into spiritual gaze. The testicular breathing is not just a technique to perform in the intimacy of silence. It is a key that, once turned, begins to transform all your way of inhabiting yourself. For this alchemical wisdom to take root in your life, you need more than repeating the exercise. You need to create a lifestyle that accompanies energetic elevation. Here I share with you practical but deeply spiritual tips to integrate this practice into your day-to-day and keep the inner flame lit. First, create a sacred daily space. You do not need a temple or a mountain, just a corner where silence is real and the intention pure. Practice testicular breathing regularly, even if it is only 10 minutes. Constancy is what refines energy, not duration. Do it when you wake up or before going to bed. The key is the intention. Honor that moment as if you were tuning your soul to the source. Second, stop seeing sexual energy as a problem. Many men fall into the mistake of fighting their desire, believing that it is an enemy that they must suppress. But desire is a powerful current that only needs direction. It is not about repressing, but redirecting. Observe your desire with respect, not as an animal, but as a river that can irrigate your upper centers. Every time you feel it, remember, this fire can rise. Third, connect with the heart before any impulse. Before falling into compulsive habits, such as unconscious masturbation or the anxious search for external stimulus. Stop. Breathe. Put one hand on your testicles and the other on your heart. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, can I elevate this energy towards love? Can I offer it as an act of internal transformation? This simple gesture changes the course of your energy. Fourth, feed your fire with consciousness. What you eat, see, and think feeds or pollutes your energy field. Sexual energy responds to your lifestyle. Avoid toxic stimuli such as pornography, violence, or dense foods that disconnect you from the body. Instead, look for art that elevates, live food, company that nourishes. Remember, your energy is the reflection of your environment. Take care of it. Fifth, honor slowness. Alchemy is not instantaneous. We live in a culture addicted to the immediate, but transmutation requires patience, listening, presence. The ancients did not speak of results, but of processes. If one day you do not feel anything, continue. If another day there is intensity, observe it without attachment. Testicular breathing does not seek to provoke, but to reveal. And that revelation occurs when you stop controlling and begin to allow. Sixth, practice your relationships. When you transmute your energy, your bonds change. Your partner notices it. Your family feels it. Your eyes reflect it. Practice breathing before intimate encounters, not to last longer, but to be more present. To turn the physical act into an energetic fusion rite, where the sacred male is offered with integrity, presence, and openness. Living from the transmuted sexual center is living like a conscious man, a modern alchemist who does not flee from his fire, embraces him, raises him, and offers him to the world as light. For centuries, the knowledge of the body as a temple was hidden, ridiculed or fragmented. We were taught that the spiritual should deny the bodily, that purity consisted in renouncing pleasure, that desire should be repressed and sexual energy contained by shame or guilt. But the ancients knew something different. They knew that divinity is not separated from the flesh, but latent within it. Testicular breathing is an act of alchemical redemption, a silent affirmation that man can reconcile his most primary pulses with his highest desire, that there is no contradiction between having desire and having consciousness, that sexual fire is not a sin, it is a portal, and that when breathed with intention, it becomes the wind that drives the soul towards the heights of the spirit. This video does not seek only to inform, it seeks to awaken. Because today, more than ever, the world needs men who live from their center, not from the hardened ego, nor from the evasion disguised as spirituality, but from a sacred male who has made peace with his creative energy. Breathing from the testicles is, in reality, breathing from the origin. Breathing from the origin is to honor the place where life is born. It is to declare that your energy will no longer be a prisoner of impulses nor a victim of conditioning. That you have remembered your power and that you have chosen to elevate it, direct it, and offer it. Because every time you breathe from your root with consciousness, you not only purify your body, you tune your field with your divine essence. And in that instant, you become a bridge between the earth and the sky, between the instinctive and the eternal, between the warrior and the wise. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be enlightened. You just need to take a step, breathe, feel, elevate, and from there, let each action, each thought, each bond be an expression of that refined energy that you now know inhabits you.